I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 3 of the Daredevil Born Again series. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to DisneyPlus, check out that episode, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from the 3rd episode of the Daredevil Born Again series, it's Jon Jon Rico.
Hey, I'm not Daredevil.
Hey, but are you a really good lawyer?
Kind of. I can argue.
Well, that's first half of it, right? That's the most important part.
Yeah.
Oh man. This is totally the first time we're recording this too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Let's just say that we definitely did not record most of this video and then have to start recording for real.
Yeah, no one needed to know that.
Yeah, I'm just loopy at that point. Anyway, as I was saying, I know I said it in kind of the 2-episode premiere. First off, we this feels weird that we finally just have, a recap where we're doing one episode at a time. It kind of feels off almost. When I was starting to kind of write my thoughts about this episode, I was like, oh, there's not another one to write any thoughts about. Okay.
One solid hour-long episode.
I know. But that kind of just like I was saying with the 2-episode premiere, I really like that we have kind of this extended runtime where, we can, just like I said, we can let certain scenes breathe, whether it be, during when they're trying to get their witness to the courthouse and we kind of have a couple extra, twists and turns to kind of add suspense to that here and there. Or, one that I didn't really want to have continue was when they were describing what it's like to die by getting hit by a train. That went on a little bit longer than I wanted to hear. It was very gruesome. But I really overall enjoy that we kind of are able to kind of live in these moments a little bit longer here and there, just here and there. I'm not saying any of them go way longer than they need to be or anything like that, but just, extra 30 seconds here, extra minute here. It just makes it feel more impactful. When it's super suspenseful, it adds extra elements of suspense. When it's, a very big moral point, it adds little extra seconds here and there, and I like that. I like having this extra moment here and there to breathe and to kind of live in that moment for a little bit extra time. That we don't always get with series, and they're not bad series. It's just you know what I mean. I just appreciate that we can do that with this. Getting right into it. I mean, there's plenty of things that I want to react to and instant react to and stuff like that. And there's more stuff we're going to talk about and takeaways and predictions, stuff like that. But right off the bat, fuck that Torres guy. The amount of effort that went into, making sure he got away safely from the 2 cops that were trying to kill him before the trial whatsoever. And then, keeping him in a safe house and then getting him to the courtroom and all of this stuff. For him to just get on the stand and say, what are you talking about? I wasn't there. Seriously? I yelled at my TV. I was just like, seriously?
Classic corruption.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, there's plenty of things that I want to react to. I want to go over in takeaways and predictions. So before we get too far ahead of myself, Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for episode 3?
Yeah, man, this episode is probably a perfect, or not probably, it is absolutely a perfect example of why Daredevil doesn't always need to rely on like just putting on the Daredevil suit and just like dispensing some vigilante justice when the courtroom doesn't necessarily provide him the justice that he needs.
Yep.
I think if you were just to give this or present this show as just like a legal drama, where it's like, Matt Murdock of Murdock and Associates is, just, doing, he's a blind lawyer who's got some unique abilities and you can use those to actually help win him his cases, stuff like that. I think that itself, and he's going, being pitted against a corrupt lawyer who's known with like a criminal past. I think that alone just presents itself as like a cool legal thriller kind of a show.
Yeah.
But you introduce this kind of more of a superhero aspect to it, obviously being in the MCU, of course. And it just makes it even cooler. And I just, it's what makes me love Daredevil just as a character in general too. I think it's just really fun watching him be both the Matt Murdock lawyer side of him as well as being the Daredevil aspect of him as well. But yeah, I just think that works as a compelling show on its own when you just take this part of the character and you give him a full episode and it's still extremely compelling television. It's even with whether it's him presenting his closing case to the jury, of course, when the rug gets pulled underneath them with the whole Torres thing. And then so he decides to play his last card, which is just straight up revealing White Tiger, and then and then just kind of using that to kind of show the character that Hector has. And stuff. I think that's just like a great way to show like his side of the lawyer stuff, and then at the same time you're also watching like the defense, or I guess the DA, because he's on the defense technically. The prosecutor is actually just kind of like watching them present their case and like, okay, I can kind of like see how both sides would approach tackling this case. He's like, okay, this is actually like working these two cases together. I even like the scenes in the galley with the two lawyers and then the judge, like just how they navigate the whole situations. He's like, so yeah, I just like all that stuff in general. It's just really fascinating to watch when it's written really well. And this episode is just a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with you, and it kind of just demonstrates again that good writing makes a compelling episode regardless of the material and stuff like that. Like we are getting a superhero show, by definition, a superhero show where an entire episode was a legal suspense drama without any little to no action, because maybe the van driving to the courthouse where
that's where like the thriller aspect and stuff comes in, like watching them try to keep the cops from intercepting a witness and all that.
Literally, like that is the extent of the action in a superhero show. And we still had a very compelling episode of this show. I was glued to the television from when it started to when it finished, like because we did have that suspense and we did have the drama aspect where you're invested in this case. You're wondering what's going to happen, like whose side is going to end up eventually getting the jury on their side, type of thing. And it's just interesting when you can do that, and it just proves the point that good writing is good writing regardless of what the theme ends up being, type of thing. So but that leads perfectly into kind of what I want to talk about in takeaways. So you want to get to some big takeaways?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick off big takeaways. And this is like, just an aside to the actual trial. This is kind of, I believe this is kind of right after Matt kind of, basically throws it in there. Hey, Hector's the White Tiger, like in court. And then we get back to kind of the cell where they're holding Hector, and Matt and Hector are kind of talking about this. And it's a talk that as I'm watching it, I'm like, there's a higher meaning in this conversation that we're having. And sight unseen is or sight, like just looking at this conversation on the surface, it's Matt having a conversation with Hector, basically saying like, hey, if we win this trial, if you don't end up getting jail time or worse for this, your days as the White Tiger need to end, like effectively, type of thing. And we kind of get a very familiar response from Hector, saying, it's not just a suit. I'm not just putting on a suit. Right. It's who I am. And that feels super familiar in like past episodes and past seasons of, Matt kind of describing himself as Daredevil to, Foggy or Karen or any of the other people, like, you know what I mean? Like, I have to do this. I have to do
even how Fisk calls it to him, his other half, his other side of him. Yeah. It's not just like this he puts on the suit and he's just Daredevil. No, the suit, Daredevil is him.
Right.
Yeah.
So surface level, this is a conversation between Matt and Hector. On a higher level, I was taking this as this is like a conversation between, Matt and past Matt.
Yeah,
type of
absolutely.
thing. Like, and I'm really
one vigilante to another.
Exactly. Without him saying it, because he never admits to Hector that like
Never
I
plays
was
that card. Yeah.
I was the Daredevil type of thing. Like, and Hector has mentioned like, somebody else has to do this because Daredevil hasn't been seen in a while type of thing.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at it as this might be kind of what starts kicking off the sequence that then drives Matt to then have to become Daredevil again, or like starts to make that push to become Daredevil, to see that Daredevil is still needed in the city type of thing. And that's kind of how I was taking that conversation as like kind of that higher kind of purpose of this conversation. And it was really interesting to kind of watch this and, one side kind of knowing everything and the other side kind of just Hector talking to a really good lawyer. And kind of just trying to say like, yeah, this is me. I am, I want to do this because it's the right thing to do, which he repeated multiple times in the courtroom. That's why he did it. So it was just a really interesting and I think we're going to look back towards the end of the season when we do see Matt kind of take up the mantle of Daredevil again, as this kind of is that kind of what kicks off the kind of chain that brings Matt to being Daredevil again. That's why I think this is a very impactful conversation that we need to remember. But Rico, what were some of your big takeaways for episode 3?
Yeah, not necessarily just that conversation, but the fact that this episode ends with the tragic death of Hector at the end of it. Of course, that's the big like shocker moment at the end there too. The way it's intercut too with that monologue by Fisk with BB is just kind of like it's again a testament to how great the writing in this show is. But just that cutting of him putting on the suit and getting that little close up of the amulet, like again emphasizing that is just who he is at the end of the day in his core. Like as soon as he got out of jail, he was right back and doing it. And it came back and he paid the ultimate price for it. And yeah, like you said, I think necessarily like, once Matt finds out about Hector's death, that's really going to be the catalyst that will probably bring him back into the mantle of Daredevil too. Because, we get a lot of these shots of him holding the devil horn still, and he's still reflecting a little bit and all those things. So I think the fact that conversation and then the fact that immediately he followed up on his words and went back out there in the field and then got killed by the this I'm assuming this like kind of a police Punisher gang that's kind of like corrupt police that are kind of doing this whole thing, either doing it to like sultry or like make tarnish Punisher's name, like Frank's name in general, like whatever his reputation is as a vigilante. So yeah, I think that's just like a crazy impactful moment that's gonna definitely affect Matt's journey going forward for sure. And yeah, I kind of like at the opposite end of this, too. We're getting Matt's trying to like stay really hard from like kind of going back to the Daredevil thing, but at the same time, it kind of feels like Fisk is like trying really hard to get away from the Kingpin thing, but that keeps chasing him too.
Right.
So I kind of like again that's what makes these two characters like mirror each other so well, and every single time they're together, it's just so great. It's because their character journeys are so different, but also the same at the same time, especially the way they're approaching them in this particular season. I even like that. I don't know if it was in episode 2 or 3. There's a conversation between I think Matt and Heather where he goes like, I kind of think that he's actually like being genuine about what he wants to do for the city or something like that. Like part of me wants to believe that. Yeah. So like and so I think Fisk is even trying to convince himself that the same way that Matt's trying to convince himself that he's no longer Daredevil. So and again, watching those two ultimately go on this collision course where they're just going to go back to their old ways, and it's just going to lead to this them colliding in a different way to like. I just think it really speaks to the character work of the show and how they're able to bring in characters like White Tiger to kind of help emphasize that character arc for other people as well.
Yeah, and I mean, just like I kind of was saying with the 2-episode premiere, what they do very well so far in this series. I mean, we have a lot of episodes to go still. We only had 3, but they're like juggling multiple storylines and kind of inching all of them forward. Even in this episode where we had, the main focus was on the trial and at the courthouse in general. We still have, all of these other storylines kind of just inching a little bit closer and closer together until they're going to start colliding storylines type of thing. So it's really cool that we can have kind of a lot of different, plates spinning and a lot of different kind of storylines just progressing just enough, because we are going to eventually see them all collide and stuff like that, where they're going to intermingle and cross, and eventually Fisk is going to be pulled back into his Kingpin ways, and we're going to have Matt being pulled back into the Daredevil ways, and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we know that's coming. We know there's going to be a clash, and we know all of these storylines are kind of being driven eventually together. But it's cool that we can see these little inching progressions of all of them. Even in an episode like this, which the primary focus is on one central topic, but we can still kind of forward all of these other things.
It's like this Fisk's war on vigilantism, basically, and the way that's kind of incorporated into the overall story. And also, like, I think maybe in the first episode too, one of the first shots we see of Fisk, he's looking at all his suits. All of them are all different colors, and he's been wearing different colored suits, but he's had that one white suit that Vanessa got him in the third. And I feel like that's going to be like his final suit up moment when he finally embraces that Kingpin moment of him back again. We're going to see him wear that white suit with the black shirt underneath, and it's going to feel like real, especially the way they, one of the things I've noticed too is the way they approach his diet in this too, because, obviously Matt's talked about, how he's lighter in his step, and we every time we see him eat, it's like a one egg white and like a piece of asparagus, basically. You're like, what's a horrible diet for a guy that big? So I feel like his actual physique is actually going to play into the character arc as well. We're going to see him probably get a little bit bigger soon too, probably going back into that, embodying that old Kingpin persona again too. Is going to involve him bulking up a little bit.
The other thing I noticed when we do get that shot, and I think you're right, I think it was either the first or the second episode, when we do get that shot of his clothes in his closet, I didn't see any Hawaiian shirt. I want
no, they're like, we should, we'll just leave that one out there. Well, he was a lot bigger. Maybe he just can't fit into those anymore.
I just think it would have been funny, a funny little Easter egg if it was like at the very end of the rack or something like that. It was just the red Hawaiian shirt. Just a little teeny tiny fun Easter egg to have. Give it a little chuckle. But you want to get to some predictions?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. Why don't you kick off predictions?
Okay. Well, so first of all, not only just rest in peace to Hector Ayala, the White Tiger character in general, but rest in peace to Camara de los Reyes, who he passed away from cancer while after filming his 2 episodes for the show, because they filmed this back in 2023 now. So it's been over a year since he left us. But man, he really left his mark on these 2 episodes, man, because he put in a really great performance as Hector Ayala. And enough to where I was like, man, I wish we could have seen more as the character before they just took him away from us like that at the end. I was kind of hoping to see like him and Daredevil out in the field together one time or something like that, just to see their paths cross one more time. But I think ultimately that could also set up a way, because Hector's family is in the courtroom as well. I don't know if it's his wife and daughter, but they say that he was living with his sister and niece as well, or something like that. They're living with some family members, but there are multiple people in Hector's family that end up also taking the mantle of White Tiger as well. One of them is Hector's niece, and I think one of them is his sister as well. So I think it's very they could definitely kind of do that where obviously the mantle is passed on from someone in his family. It's not that could also play into that whole, like, it's not just the amulet, who we are. Like he said, like, I didn't choose this, it chose me. So it could be the amulet just chose another member of his family too. So I'm very curious to see how that whole thing works when it comes to the White Tiger amulet and the whole like kind of mystery surrounding that kind of lore and all that. And so I just think that's a cool kind of a way to possibly set up the idea of Hector's death, possibly either inspiring one of his family members to take up the amulet, or just like setting up the circumstance where the amulet chooses a member of his family to kind of carry on his legacy, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am in, total agreement with you. Like the performance that we got from the actor that was playing Hector, horrible to kind of hear that news, that he passed away, long before they even finished filming. Like,
you could tell he was definitely fighting some too, because he was pretty thin looking. I remember seeing the guy saying like, he was definitely like not well on those days, and they kind of had to work around shooting with him. So the fact that he was just able to push through like that too, like not unlike Chadwick Boseman back then.
That's what I was gonna realize
that. It's just a real testament to his dedication to the craft, man. So much respect.
Yeah, and it is a shame that we're not going to be able to kind of see anymore because, yeah, just like you know, what a cool kind of scene would have been is, you know, Matt kind of getting back into being Daredevil
Mhm.
and then maybe having like one of those instances where, you know, they kind of clash
Yeah.
really quick and then they go, oh no, we're on the same side here type of thing. Like having that kind of interaction would have been a very kind of interesting kind of thing that was going on kind of as Daredevil was coming back.
Would have been a
To,
cool way for Hector to learn that Matt was Daredevil.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that would have been cool because obviously Matt would have been like, "Oh, that's Hector. He's the White Tiger." So,
right.
so maybe we can still get that moment with like one of his family members later on too, though. Like, yeah, I was your brother's lawyer, your uncle's lawyer, or whatever it is. Because there's two different versions. I can't remember which version was used in the Ultimate Spider-Man animated show a long time ago. But there was a version of White Tiger in that where he worked along with like Iron Fist and stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely a cool approach they can use with that character in the future.
Very cool. Yeah. So hopes are that, you know, we're going to see one of Hector's family members kind of taking up the mantle. I think that would be really interesting and it would be cool. And especially because, I mean, they literally have already started filming season 2 of this.
Mhm.
Like they just started. So hopefully, you know, we are going to kind of see this kind of you know, kind of maybe the beginning of a family member starting this, and maybe that can lead into a storyline for season 2 if we don't get it, you know, fleshed out in season 1. But that'd be really cool. So kind of going back to another thing that you were talking about with kind of Fisk and the example like that you were given with his breakfast was kind of the very beginning of this episode. We saw his breakfast, and he was having a conversation with Vanessa. And by the way, you can tell there is something going on like between Fisk and Vanessa. And I mean, we already know, like, you know, there's been problems. You know, Fisk was away for a while he was
Yeah,
recovering and all of this kind of stuff.
he's aware of the affair.
Right.
Yeah.
But every scene that they're in together just feels uncomfortable.
It
Like,
feels like a professional relationship in a
but
sense, like
but
it's like a platonic business relationship in a sense.
but almost not even platonic at that point.
Yeah.
Like it just feels uncomfortable. It almost feels more comfortable when Matt and Fisk are sitting in the diner together, like talking. And even that,
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Like they're enemies, and it felt more comfortable during that moment than it does in this opening scene in episode 3, where Fisk and Vanessa are basically having breakfast. But Fisk is having a conversation with Vanessa, and he alludes to, you know, we don't need that crime stuff anymore because I'm looking towards something bigger or greater. I can't remember the exact terminology he was using, but I don't know. I'm wondering kind of what he means by that. Does he mean like, you know, as just rising as, you know, mayor of New York and stuff like that? Or does he like, I want to be president? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it like actually meant by that, but it was one of those moments where I was like, all right. I want to make a note of that. I want to get that on record as, you know, he's saying something or alluding to something that he wants to be, that's going to be bigger than, you know, what they had plans for as a crime empire in New York City type of thing. Like, what is bigger or greater or something like that than that? So I really don't have an answer. It was just one of those things that I wanted to kind of theorize about and kind of make a note of here. And then, you know, as we kind of see the story unfold in future episodes, maybe even, you know, season 2, stuff like that, what this is kind of pointing towards or starting to point towards. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything like if that kind of resonated with you at all or not. But like that was just one of those things where I was like, what exactly is he kind of thinking about? Like, what is he kind of putting higher than, you know, his crime empire, or I guess by extension Vanessa's crime empire at this point?
Yeah, I wonder if it's like, you know, the controlling the 5 families or whatever. It's like, you know, the crime families in New York to him just seems smaller. And I think the idea that now that he's a mayor, he can have more power, like say in corrupt police officers and stuff. I think he had some corrupt cops under his belt when he was like regular Kingpin Fisk, of course. But when you're mayor, that kind of works on a bigger scale. I feel like, especially throughout all of New York City, especially when you brought in that bring in the notion that the, you know, half of the police hates them, half of the police loves them. It's going to create a pretty big kind of weird power dynamic there, just within the the police force. But yeah, I just feel like it's just him thinking bigger than just like I would say petty crime families in his head or something like that. Like now he's working up, so to speak, in more political power and how he can work, play those strings, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to kind of unpack and kind of theorize about and kind of just let breathe that we kind of got teased in this episode that I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what happens moving forward. Like we don't have like answers to any of this yet. We don't know like what he's kind of exactly alluding to. We don't know exactly when Matt's going to take up the mantle of Daredevil again. There's a lot of just kind of things that we know we're kind of pushing towards, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen. And then that makes it, more compelling. I am excited for episode 4. Like I cannot wait to get back to, the next episode and kind of see, exactly like you said, like what is the aftermath of, White Tiger just being taken out so brutally, just boom at the end.
It's got to obviously set up the introduction of Frank's Punisher too, because that's going to be used to tarnish his name. And again, I even mentioned it in the last one, like that's where him and Matt are going to have this conversation. He's like, yeah, those motherfuckers don't know what they're doing. Like, like they're obviously like, I have to imagine that they're working for Fisk in some form. Like Fisk is really pulling the strings behind like this kind of like anti-vigilante force out there. So just kind of watching like all these old players from the Netflix show just come back, especially Frank. Like I'm so excited for John Bernthal to come back, especially because he's doing his own special presentation for the Punisher as well. And they said they're not holding back on the violence for that either. Just kind of like just bringing back like this gritty New York street vibe into the MCU. It's just I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I'm here for everything. I cannot wait for episode 4. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 3? And, what event is going to ultimately drive Matt to take up the mantle of Daredevil again? Is it going to be, exactly what happened at the end of this episode with Hector's White Tiger being taken out? Is it going to be kind of, maybe the Punisher returning, Frank returning and kind of, talking to Matt and saying like, you need to come back. We need your help. Like this needs to happen. There are no wrong answers to this. Let us know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.